this newly released National Security Task Force report that the Republican Study Committee just launched last week. And for those who are watching, folks, they put a year and a half of work into this thing, and you can see when you read it. We're going to send out the links to this, and folks should really check this out and see what this is. But I'd like to turn it over to you, Congressman, to kind of explain what's in the report, explain the process, and then we can talk about where we go from here.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you. Love what you and Ambassador Haley and the team are doing there. It's a critical time for it, as you know, and these are serious times, and they call for serious leadership and serious policy proposals. And as you mentioned, the Republican Study Committee, RSC, as it's known on the Hill, is the largest caucus of conservatives in Congress. We currently have 148 members in the House. And when it was founded back in the mid 70s, it was designed to be the intellectual arsenal of conservatism in Congress. Ed Follner, who later worked at Heritage, was the original executive director, one of the founders of this organization. And since that time, it's played a very important role. And we really have sort of refocused on that, the original intent and design of this organization in this Congress, because we recognize that there's a lot of important work to be done, but we need to be focused, laser focused, I think, on developing those policies. And so what we've done is we separated all those members into 5 working groups or task forces. And as you mentioned, for the last year and a half, prior to the pandemic and the shutdown and everything, everyone was working and deeply engaged in this effort, ultimately to produce these individual reports of each of the task forces and then assemble them all together, which we're still going to do late summer, early fall, into kind of a massive 500-page or so report that is our menu of policy options for conservatives, for the Republican Party in the Congress. We think that's really important because we have to say what we're for, right? And not just opposing this big, rise of socialism and the radical left. We need to remind people how important it is to do exactly what you guys are doing every single day. We're aspiring to do the same. That is to stand up for American leadership and American values. And it is increasingly important to do that on the global stage, as you know. And we're so grateful for what President Trump's been able to accomplish in his administration, strengthening America's national security, rebuilding it really after the previous 8 years and the prior administration. And then when Ambassador Haley was able to go to the UN and restore our credibility on the international stage, those are just such important steps and what ultimately we have to accomplish again as a country. We believe in the old Reagan doctrine. We maintain peace through our strength. And what we're trying to do with this report, it's a 65-page summary of 130 different policy proposals, but a lot of it, as you mentioned, is focused on our biggest threats. And you could list Iran and the jihadi terrorist movement, you could list Russia, you could list a lot of things, but China is our principal threat right now. We really believe that for a lot of reasons, and many of which you guys have outlined in your proposals and your 5 points. What we've said about China is we have to recognize we're in a transition stage in our international diplomacy and our national strategic initiatives and our strategy overall. For several years post 9/11, we were battling these sort of terrorist organizations and regimes around the world, and it was loose, and we had to be agile and be in many places around the world to do that. Right now, we're in a transition phase. We really believe that we have these new state global threats: China, Russia, Iran, others, but China principal among them because they have imperialist objectives. They are trying to rebuild the great Chinese empire, and we have to recognize that's a direct threat to the U.S.